This is Roy Chua of EbitThink, and I'm here today with Timon Sloan, VP of Marketing and Ecosystem of the Open Networking Foundation, the ONF. And Timon's joining me to talk about an exciting new piece of news. The ONF is announcing a new 5G SD-RAN project. So Timon, let's start with SD-RAN. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, thanks, Roy, and thanks for having me. So SD-RAN is a pretty terrific project that we've just launched with a terrific set of backers. It is really focusing for the first time on open source in the Open RAN space. So there's been an initiative that many of your listeners probably know about. It's called ORAN, and that's been focused on architecture and standards to define an Open RAN and interoperable pieces that one can plug together. Well, what we're starting to do is build components that can plug into that architecture as open source to be able to help invigorate that market and help drive transformation that the operators want to see.
Interesting, exciting. And who are some of the participants with you? I realized that you might have some pretty big names.
That's true. It's we have both a whole set of more classic operators that includes AT&T, China Mobile, China Unicom, Deutsche Telekom. It includes NTT, and I think those were all the ones in the announcement. Hope I didn't miss anybody. Plus, we have hyperscalers in there too. Google and Facebook are involved. Intel's involved, and then very interestingly, Radisys in the RAN space. And then lastly, TIP is also part of this announcement and part of everything that we're doing here.
That's exciting. So you're working with TIP, you're working with the ORAN Alliance, obviously, to make this happen. That's right. One of the key things around this whole disaggregation of the RAN, right, the CU, the DU, the remote radio units, and so on and so forth, is there's this new component known as RIC. And maybe you want to describe what the RIC is?
Sure. So really, it's best to kind of understand the operator's intention. The operators founded ORAN and started this movement. Part of the goal here is to extract some of the functionality that's been locked in as vendor proprietary functionality down in the base stations, and to extract it up so that the operators can have more control of the networks. The bottom line is that spectrum is perhaps the most valuable resource the operators own, and they want to be able to control it themselves. And today the vendors control it, and they get some knobs to configure, but in practice, the vendors do all the custom algorithms and whatnot. And if the operators can have more control and more say over the spectrum management, there's a huge win there. So some of your listeners who might know about the RU-DU-CU split, that's the one that people talk about most. But part of that, there's also a RIC, or RAN Intelligent Controller, that is envisioned and designed in the architecture. It sits above the CU and the DU specifically, and then also hosts a number of Xapps. And these Xapps are where the operators want to host new, innovative, powerful functionality. And very specifically, they want to host things that are really RRM, or radio resource management functions. These are things like handover and load balancing and things that really get into the real-time nature of managing spectrum and users and devices, but up as apps extracted from the equipment up above and part of this RIC architecture.
Excellent. So essentially, as I see it, it's basically spectrum as an API and the ability to manage that with a wide range of applications, just like we did with the SDN controller, right? We had the SDN layer, if you will, underlying that was a network, right? And then you have applications that can program and do what you will with it, optimize it, do some cool things with it, analytics and so on and so forth. And yeah, Xapps and the RIC, I think, are going to be a really interesting place. And for us, we're watching the space very closely, especially with AI and ML attached to the information there. I think there's going to be new areas of optimization now that's available to anyone. As you point out, you don't have to depend on just the vendors or the radio vendors to give it to you. You can now actually do it yourself potentially. And so my understanding is that the ONOS, the venerable ONOS, actually has a role to play in the RIC with this project as well. Is that true?
That's right. Yeah. So ONOS has been part of this journey from the very beginning, and at first kind of applying SDN to the packet switching space, and we applied it to PON and broadband, to the optical space, and now to the last bastion of closed and proprietary, perhaps the RAN, right? And so ONOS has an amazing track record now. It's in production networks worldwide in places that people don't even know. I mean, did you know that the air traffic control system of Brazil runs on ONOS.
Wow.
I mean, there are kind of
Impressive.
crazy ways it's run in these mission critical kinds of ways, but people's lives depended on them every day.
Yep.
So um, we're actually using micro ONOS, which is kind of a refactoring of ONOS, turning it into microservices and really making it purely cloud native. And yes, so the RIC we're implementing, it's called micro ONOS RIC, and it's an ONOS-based implementation, pure cloud native implementation focused directly on this application and this market space.
Excellent. Very good. Well, looking forward to meeting Micro Onos Rick and maybe eventually Micro Onos Morty, but that's an inside joke. But anyhow, but fundamentally, I think really interesting announcement. And if we want to learn more, I understand there may be an upcoming event.
That's right. Yeah, we're hosting something September 8th and 9th, a bunch of great live keynotes from really the industry leaders. The founders of ORAN are all part of it. The whole group and participants I mentioned earlier are part of it, and much more. All the upstart RAN vendors are part of it. I think we have 6 or 7 RAN vendors participating. So you're going to see a wide spectrum of the ecosystem here. And it's not just about RAN. Actually, it's about mobile core. It's about kind of all the ways that the mobile networks are opening up. But exciting, fascinating, fast-moving space, and I think that I encourage you and others to come.
Definitely. Well, I'm signed up and looking forward to it. Well, thank you, Timon, for your time today, and thank you for the discussion on the new SD-WAN project.
Yeah, Roy, thank you too. Bye bye.